my message of speaking up, speaking out, and speaking loud can get to the masses. Because for too long, the disabled community has been put in the back, and I am determined to bring the disabled to the front of the class. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the latest installment of the Nick Speaks podcast, the podcast dedicated to the disabled community, where we speak up, speak out, and speak loud about the issues that matter to the disabled the most. I'm your host, Nicholas Comstock. You guys, I'm so glad you joined me today on this Tuesday. Before I get into today's show, I want to give you some show notes. You guys should be aware by now that back on April 30th, I released a book with 11 other co-authors that have disabilities. We are also entrepreneurs. The name of the book is Trailblazing and Transforming Entrepreneurial Stories of People with Disabilities. 12 great stories, 12 great authors. I'm chapter 5, Breaking the Mold. You do not want to miss it. You can get it on Amazon or through your Kindle device. You can also get it, and I forgot to mention this with Amazon, you can get it on Amazon in paperback if you want a physical copy. You guys, today, you're stuck with me, just little old me. I've had guests the last several weeks. I want to thank you to all my guests that have been on the show, from Dr. Adam Hazlett to Dr. Julia Bramwell to Philip Bramwell. All my guests, if I mentioned them all, we would just have a podcast of me mentioning all the previous guests. So if you've been on my show within the last month or two, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your story, and I greatly appreciate it. You guys, today I want to talk about why Nick Speaks, the podcast, exists. Because there's really two reasons why the Nick Speaks podcast exists. But if you think about it, the two reasons are really wrapped up into one. The first part of the reason is to give a voice to the disabled community. Because for a long time, I have felt that I didn't have a voice. And I know that I'm not the only one with a physical or a mental disability who feels like they don't have a voice, who doesn't feel seen. And so I feel like I have a responsibility to speak up, speak out, and speak loud about the issues that matter to the disabled the most. And I also feel like I have a responsibility to share my story of triumph in the disabled community, along with my stories of struggle and how I got through those. So that is part one of two reasons why the Nick Speaks podcast exists, is to give a platform to the disabled community and to bring the disabled community from the back to the front of the line and say, hey, we can be just as effective as those without disability, and in many cases, more effective than those without disability. So that's part one of the reason, is to give people with disabilities a voice. And I feel like with my guest and with my commentary, we are doing a good job of that here at Nick Speaks. And I want to give my producer, Kyle, a shout out, because he has helped edit. This is episode 45. He has helped edit every single episode, made sure that the episodes were on time for you guys. I could not do what I do here at Nick Speaks without Kyle Goodnight. So thank you, Kyle, for your devotion to my podcast, making sure that my message gets out there, my message looks good, sounds good, edits out all my mistakes so you guys don't see them. Maybe we'll save some of them for a blooper reel someday. I don't know. But I just want to thank Kyle Goodnight of Goodnight Podcasting Solutions for doing a great job in producing my podcast every single Tuesday. because I could not do it without him. In fact, if you're looking into getting into podcasting, I would strongly suggest that you reach out to Kyle Goodnight. We will have information in the show notes, and reach out to Kyle Goodnight. His pricing is tailored specifically to your needs. So make sure you reach out to him today. I know you won't regret reaching out to Kyle Goodnight at Goodnight Podcasting Solutions, because Kyle puts 110% into everything he does. And Nick Speaks would not be what it is today if it was not for the hard work of Kyle Goodnight. So please be sure to check Kyle Goodnight out if you want to get involved in podcasting and you want your podcast to be first class. So back to the reasons why Nick Speaks exists. Like I said, part one of the reason why Nick Speaks exists is to give the disabled community a voice and to bring the disabled community from the back of the line to the front of the line. The other reason Nick Speaks exists is solely personal. It is so that I can have a way to bring in extra income and expand my public speaking career. Because as I've said many times on this program, I have been told by by 2 states and 3 different counties that there's nothing that they can do for me as far as employment, essentially saying that I am unemployable. In fact, the state of Ohio has said, quote, Nick, we see nothing that you can offer an employer. So the person who was contracted through OOD, which is Ohioans for Opportunities with Disabilities, said, quote, Nick, in my view, I'm looking at you in the world of work, which I still have no idea what the hell that means to this day. She said, I'm looking at you in the world of work, and from what I can see, you have nothing that you can offer an employer. And so this podcast is really personal for me, and because this is the only way that I'm going to be able to bring in income. And you know what? It's fine, because from the age of 18, I've always wanted to be in media. I've always had an interest in acting and making people laugh and advocacy. I got into advocacy through a woman that will be on this program, hopefully in a few weeks. Her name is Lisa Reed. Lisa, I love you. I got really heavy into advocacy when I met Lisa Reed several years ago. And within weeks of knowing her, not months, weeks of knowing her, she calls me and says, Nick, guess what I just got you into? And I said, what's that, Lisa? She said, you're going to speak on the Ohio State steps, and we want you to speak on giving caregivers more money. So I did. I spoke on the Ohio State steps. I wish I remembered the date that I spoke for the first time as far as advocacy, but I don't. But I remember the speech that I gave because I dictated it on my phone. And then by that Thursday, I dictated it on that Monday. By that Thursday, I gave that speech, and it really kicked off my public speaking career. And so as nervous as I was when Lisa called me on a Monday and she said, hey, guess what I just got you into? And as nervous as I was on that Monday after that phone conversation, when I gave that speech on that Thursday, I knew that my life had just changed, had just shifted. We all have that moment in our lives, especially if we are driven and full of dreams and full of promise. We all have that moment in our lives where we know that our life shifted for the better. And when I gave that speech on that Thursday morning, on the Ohio State steps, where they actually had to physically lift my power chair, which is like 400 pounds, and I'm 200 plus. So figure that out. They decided to lift my power chair up on the state steps of Ohio, at the Ohio State House. And when I sat on that platform, thank God with my battery unplugged so I wouldn't turn on my chair and fly off the step, I knew by the time that I gave my speech, by the time that it was over, I knew that my life had changed. The problem that I have run into is that I have done several speaking engagements since then, and none of the actual speaking engagements have paid me. I've done a video for another agency here in the state of Ohio. I did it back in March. They paid me, and they paid me quite nicely. And I appreciate that. And that is the reason for me personally why I'm doing the Nick Speaks podcast is I need to make income. I can no longer afford to live off of the government shoestring. People with disabilities are told we can only have $2,000 in assets. We can only have $2,000 in our bank account. We can't have anything over $2,000 in that. We can't have anything over $2,000 in stocks, bonds, mutual funds. I don't even think we're allowed to have stocks, bonds, or mutual funds because it's considered an asset. You say, Nick, why don't you get an ABLE account? Because an ABLE account that was supposedly started to keep the government out of our business so that we can actually save money is not a real good thing for me because I'm not able to access it and get the money when I want. And plus, you have to keep a certain amount of money in there to have the ABLE account every month. So it's basically like another bill. So I don't have that. Now, reach out to me. If you're from ABLE account, there may have been some things that have changed. There may have been some things that you've updated. So if you're from ABLE account, if you work for the ABLE account organization, it either goes by stable account or ABLE account, depending on what state you're in. And if you work for that organization and you say, no, Nick, things have changed and you would benefit well from a stable or an ABLE account, let me know. Get on this program. And I would love to expose my viewers and listeners to that because we need a way, an alternative to build for our future. And if there is something out there like that, then I want to know about it. Stable has made some very good improvements. I want to know about it. So reach out to me if you're aware. And so this podcast is really personal to me, as I keep saying, because this is my only way for gainful employment. And I'm coming to you guys today. I've mentioned it at the beginning of my last several podcasts, but I really, really need your help. 2 years ago, I started a GoFundMe page to raise money for a handicap accessible van. I have just over $5,000, just under $5,000 in that account. And I want to thank everybody who has given to the GoFundMe page. My family member has been helping me with that GoFundMe page. And I want to thank everybody who has given to that. We started with a $50,000 goal. It's been 2 years. We are not even close to the $50,000 goal. But what I'm going to do is expand that GoFundMe to also include paying for my podcasting services and for my future public speaking gigs, as well as my handicap accessible van for the future. So if you guys can help me in any way, shape, or form, whether it's $5 or $10 or $20, or if you could just share the GoFundMe page, I would appreciate it because I really, really need your help. And, you say, well, Nick, I'm someone who plans speaking events. What are we going to get when you come speak? Well, I'm a disabled advocate. So you're going to hear my story. I'm willing to come tell my story. My type of speaking engagement that I like to do is more of an interview process instead of giving a 1 hour speech on a stage by myself, because I'm not able to have the speech written down and I'm not able to look down at notes because I'm legally blind. So in order for me to remember an hour's worth of material, that's really, really difficult. So for me, I would rather be interviewed by people. So whether you have me come do that in front of a crowd or you have a virtual event that you would like me to attend, I would request and I will request that you pay me for that. Now, if you're a fellow podcaster or if you're in the media, like a major media organization or even a small organization, and you want to interview me, I will do that for free. I will do podcast appearances for free, or, interviews with like ABC, CBS, NBC, I will do those interviews for free. Now, if I get a lot of podcast interviews and it ends up being what I am mostly doing, eventually I will start charging to do those interviews. But if you want me to come talk to your caregivers or just share my life story on, your platform, if you want me to train your caregivers, yes, I will charge for that. We will talk about that. If you want me just to come interview with you on your podcast platform, I will not charge for that unless I get inundated with a bunch of podcast requests. Then obviously, I would charge a small fee for that. You say, well, I shouldn't say a small fee. It depends on what you want. And then we'll add money accordingly. So I will charge a fee for that depending on how many podcast appearances that I have. If, it blows up. Again, you say, Nick, what are you going to get if you come to my organization and speak? You say, what are we going to get? Well, you're going to get someone that is genuine, that pulls no punches, that does not stick to a script, that is not a cookie cutter person, has no interest in either side of the aisle. I call both of them out. Do I think that one side of the aisle runs the country better than the other one? Yes, I do. And I make no apology for saying that I'm a Trump supporter. Now, does that mean that I agree with everything that President Trump says or does? No, I do not think President Trump is the Messiah like a lot of people do. Okay. There's a lot of people that are Christians that literally think that President Trump can do no wrong and he's perfect and all this type of stuff. I'm not that type of person. And for those of you that are being like, Nick, well, how dare you? How can you support a man that's made fun of somebody with a disability? Look, yes, President Trump did make fun of somebody with a disability. But if you think about it, what is the number one hallmark statement that people with disabilities say? Because I've said it often. I want to be treated the same way somebody without a disability would be treated. So if you're going to flip out and say, oh my God, Trump made fun of somebody with a disability. Well, he makes fun of all reporters that don't agree with him. It doesn't matter whether or not they have a disability. Should he have done that? No. But if I was that person with a disability and if I was a reporter, it would probably upset me a little bit. But at the same time, I would have to look back and say, now, wait a minute. He treated me just like everybody else. He made fun of me because I said or reported something that he didn't deem correct, or that he didn't like, or I said something against him. So, yes, I am a Trump supporter, but I do not stand with everything that he does. Now, don't sit around here and say, okay, well, tell me what those things are. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Okay. So just so you understand that when you have me come for your organization, I'm not going to give you this liberal ideology about, yes, everybody with a disability needs included and everybody with a disability is able to work. Because number one, that's not true. Everybody with a disability is not able to work. There are people with disabilities who cannot work because of the severity of their disability. And I think that's one of the things that Ohio needs to change when it comes to OOD, when they say everyone is employable, because that's not true. Not everyone is employable, especially on the same level. So Ohio desperately needs to change that. But back to what you're going to get when you vote for me. Not when you vote for me. I'm not running for office. Dear God, I don't want to run for office. Back to what you get when you invite me as a speaker. You're going to get someone who's genuine. You're going to get someone who is no holds barred. You're going to get someone who criticizes both sides of the aisle. You're going to get someone who loves to be in front of an audience and who loves to make people laugh and who wants to inspire the disability community to be better people. Because I'll be honest with you, when we were in podcast development and I sat down with my producer, while I'm always sitting down, so he had to sit down. I did not, because I'm always sitting down. But when I sat down with my producer to develop this podcast, I had some very deep conversations with him about, I want to leave the disabled community because of the victim mentality. Poor me. I'm disabled. I've been told I can't do things, so it must be true, and blah, blah, blah. And I told my podcast producer, I want to leave the disabled community because of the victim mentality. I don't want to do it. And I had a change of heart on that. I went and prayed about it. And I said, if my voice leaves the disabled community, I don't think there can be effective change in the disabled community if my voice is not there. Now, am I the only voice that can speak up, speak out, and speak loud in the disabled community? No, I'm not. I'm sure there are disabled people that are far more qualified than me to do so. But I believe God has given me a gift to speak into the disabled community as well as the non-disabled community and say, let's bring change. This is not right. We need to do better by our disabled folks, and we need better home health care, and we need better benefits and higher benefits, and telling somebody that they can only be on a $2,000 cap and that's all they can have. Listen, as long as I'm on Social Security, as long as anybody's on Social Security, they're not going to have anything over $2,000 in their account because the government barely pays $1,000. Sorry, I've got a motorcycle. The government barely pays Social Security recipients $1,000. Now, unless you're on SSDI, I know some states might be different. My Social Security, I get $199 from my mom from the SSDI off of her retirement, and then I get $788, which is from the COLA adjustment, which is cost of living adjustment. So it's just barely touching $1,000 right now. And there's going to be no way, unless I become a stripper of some sort, or maybe like some kind of handicapped stripper, that I am going to have $2,000, anything over that, in my bank account at any time. So I feel like my voice is needed to the disabled community to say this needs to change, and this stigmatism needs to change of people with disabilities that aren't employable, because that's not true. We are employable. We deserve more of a chance. And if you think you have the ADA, yeah, I'm sorry. Like I said in a couple episodes prior, the ADA is 35 years old. It's as old as I am. And it really hasn't had any updates since then. So before we go champion the ADA, let's remember that, because that would also be one of my goals, to update the ADA to include employment, to include accessible employment and good benefits for those that are disabled. And you say, for those of you that are so worried that Trump's going to take away your Medicaid, why are you worried about something that is so meager and that doesn't even really support you? Your Medicaid and your Social Security, you're on a shoestring budget. So why don't we make it a point to get off that shoestring budget so that we can do more in our lives? But the government is not going to help us do that. It's going to be us disabled folks that's going to do that. And you might be out there saying, well, Nick, can I do that? Yes, you can. You can do that. For those of you that are out there, because like I said, I don't agree that everyone with a disability is employable. There are some disabilities that are too severe for people to actually work. So for those folks, there needs to be a serious raise in the disabled community, and there needs to be serious Medicaid overhaul, and there needs to be serious Social Security overhaul, so that the people that have the severe disabilities that absolutely cannot work are taken care of regardless. And so that really is the reasons the Nick Speaks podcast exists. It exists to give the disabled community a voice where we speak up, speak out, and speak loud. And it exists to also give me an income, because I've been told I'm unemployable by 2 states and 3 different counties. And so I have to find something that works for me. And I already told you what you're going to get when you come to see me in person as a public speaker. Whether I'm training a caregiver or sharing my life experience, you're going to get somebody who really cares about the disabled community. You're going to get somebody who is honest and upfront and to the point, and you're going to get somebody that's going to make you laugh. They don't call me Nickalicious for nothing. I came up with that nickname on my own. And now a lot of people in my TikTok community, which, by the way, if you're not following me on TikTok, follow me on TikTok at Nicholas Comstock. A lot of people in my TikTok community gave me the name Nickalicious. I started using that name. I'm like, hey, this is Nickalicious. And I try to bring a spirit of joy wherever I go on stage. So you say, Nick, what are we going to get? You're going to get the spirit of joy. You're going to get somebody who is honest. You're going to get somebody who is upfront about his life experience or lack thereof. You're going to get somebody who loves to have fun in spite of the incredible physical pain that I'm in every day. You're going to get somebody who just loves life and who wants to train and help other people with disabilities live their life with as much joy and as much vigor as I try to live mine. And let me tell you, every day is not easy, because there are a majority of the days where I struggle with severe depression and anxiety. But I have learned that I have to pull myself out of that, or else I'm up a creek without a paddle, and that's why my faith in God is so important, because I would honestly not be here without my faith in God. I would be dead right now if it wasn't for what God has done for me on the cross, and for him bringing his salvation into my life and me saying yes to Jesus. Am I a perfect Christian? No, not by any stretch. And I will tell you that. I'm one of the most open books that you will ever get. And let me tell you, there are some days where faith in God, it doesn't even seem like enough. And so you're just stuck. But I look back at everything that I've been through and I say, God, because I couldn't have made it without him. And so, listen, if you're able to support my podcast, please do. Please subscribe. Please hit that notification bell. Please use the GoFundMe link in the bio to donate $5, $10, $20. If you can donate a little bit every month, I'm not going to pressure you to do it. I'm not one of these TV preachers that says, sow a seed to meet your need and, give me $1,000 so that I can go drive a nice fancy car and eat caviar and all this type of stuff. No, I really need your support. So my message of speaking up, speaking out, and speaking loud can get to the masses, because for too long, the disabled community has been put in the back, and I am determined to bring the disabled to the front of the class. So please help me do that by supporting my GoFundMe page. Whether you can give me $5, $10, or $20, it doesn't matter. Just do whatever you can. And I would be forever grateful for that. If you're any media personality that's listening to this, please reach out to me. The Nick Speaks podcast needs exposure, and I can only do that through the media. So if you're someone in the media who's listening to me right now, please email me at nickspeaksofficial@gmail.com. Anyone that wants to have me on their podcast, email me at the same email address. Anyone that wants to come on this podcast, email me at the same email address, nickspeaksofficial@gmail.com. You say, Nick, what are the qualifications or the requirements for someone to be on your podcast? Well, you must be someone that is able to carry on a conversation. You must be someone that is either disabled or in the disabled community or has a disabled loved one. Now, if you don't have a disabled loved one, or you've never been disabled, but you've been in the disabled community, I want to hear from you. So whether you're a parent that has someone that is disabled, or whether you're a parent that is disabled and you want to come talk about your life and how you've been able to handle motherhood or fatherhood as someone who is disabled, I would love to hear from you as well. So you must be someone that's able to carry on a conversation, and you must be someone that has a story that my viewers and listeners need to hear. Now, you don't have to send me a long story in the email. You can just say, hey, Nick, I listened to your podcast. I watched your podcast. I believe I have a story that needs to get out there. I'm a part of the disabled community, or I work in the disabled community. Send me an email and I will send you an email back with my booking link, and we will set up a pre-call. I do a pre-call with all of my guests so that we can make sure that your computer is set up right and that you're in a good place where you're not going to be distracted for an hour to an hour and a half. That's how long we do the interviews. So you will need an hour and an hour and a half, to do an interview with me when we tape the interview. And you must also be willing to go on video, because this podcast is not only audio, it's video. So please be aware of that. So if you're able to help me in any way, or if you want me to come speak at your event, please reach out to me at nickspeaksofficial@gmail.com. And for my other disabled family members, and I say family members because I feel like we're all family in some way, you do not have to be the victim the rest of your life. You can pull up by your bootstraps and live as full of life as you want to live. Unfortunately, you're going to have to be the one to make the life that you want, because there's going to be no one to help you. There's going to be no one who wants you to succeed as much as you want to succeed. You may have people in your life that support you. I have people in my life that support me, but they don't understand the gravity of what I'm trying to accomplish. I shouldn't say gravity. That means I don't know. They don't understand the importance of what I'm trying to accomplish by building my own brand, by building my own business. So a lot of times, disabled folks, you're going to feel lonely probably most of the time. But, it's worth it when you build a life that's worth living. Do it not only for you, but do it so that you can show the disabled community you don't have to be a victim the rest of your life. Why? Because I chose not to be. If you can help me in any way, I would greatly appreciate it. The link to my email is in my bio. The link to my GoFundMe is in my bio. Any media personalities, please reach out to me. I would like to share my story with you, and I hope this was a great episode, everybody. It's been a while since we have been alone together. I've had a guest almost every week for about 2 months, and that is going to continue because I really enjoy interviewing people. So if you think you would fit the criteria to be on the Nick Speaks podcast, send me an email and we'll get you set up on a pre-call and do a podcast taping and have a wonderful time. Thank you guys for listening to me today. Help out in any way you can and remember, this is the Nick Speaks podcast, where we speak up, speak out, and speak loud about the issues that matter to the disabled the most. I'm your host, Nick Comstock, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.